when it happens to you, happens out of thin air. When your heart starts to race, when you stand face to face with your vision and prayer, every word that was said whirls around in your head like a weed. You relive it again and again to leave that it's when you start to believe, oh, your mind starts to play. Can you really be sure they're not making it yours just to take it away? When the doors never opened before, you can finally walk through to a world filled with sun, and it's only begun when it happens to you. When it happens to you. When you start to believe, our mind starts to play. Can you really be sure they're not making it yours just to take it away? All the doors were open before. You can finally walk through to a world filled with sun, and it's only begun when it happens to you. When it happens to you. When it
Welcome to, if it only even runs a minute, the 10th edition of evenings dedicated to rare and inspiring songs, stories, and photos from underappreciated musicals.
That was Katie Thompson, if
Clearly.
you don't already know. Class act. Singing When It Happens to You from the Red Shoes. The Red Shoes opened in 1993 at the Gershwin Theater. It played 51 previews and then closed after 5 performances of Gershwin. It was the biggest loss in Broadway history at the time at $8 million.
The story started out as a Hans Christian Andersen tale about a girl who is unable to stop dancing when wearing magical red shoes. It was made into a milestone 1948 movie and was one of those that people were always mentioning, saying that should be turned into a musical, like Newsies or many other movies. There's also, we all know that I never saw the red shoes, I never heard that speech, which is Kevin's favorite from a chorus line. So it was a very iconic movie.
The show reunited the Secret Garden team of Marsha Norman and Susan H. Schulman and paired them with Jule Styne. However, between the final workshop and the first day of rehearsal, Susan was fired and Stanley Donen was brought on. Donen had directed movie musicals like Singing in the Rain, but had never directed a stage musical. Actors showing up on the first day of Broadway rehearsal were completely surprised by who the director was. Sounds like a scene from Smash.
In the show, a ballerina is caught between her overbearing impresario and her composer boyfriend. Sounds like Phantom of the Opera or Center Stage. Roger Reese played the impresario, Hugh Panaro, the boyfriend, and Leslie Brown starred. Reese was replaced by Steve Barton, and most of Leslie Brown's solos were replaced by silence. Both of the main ladies were actually dancers rather than singers, which was a problem. Tim Jerome, in a supporting role, was also inexplicably replaced because he didn't read as old enough during previews.
He's awesome.
Not old enough.
When the producers decided that the lyrics needed help, they enlisted Styne's former collaborator, Bob Merrill. But Merrill would only write under a pseudonym. So in the final version of The Red Shoes, the lyrics are by Marsha Norman and Paul Stryker. Also important to note that Bob Merrill never saw the show. He faxed in his lyrics from California.
Amazing. A lot of the creative choices during The Red Shoes boiled down to a war, with Marsha, choreographer Laura Lubovitch, and scenic designer Heidi Landesman on one side, and producer Martin Starger, Julie Styne, and Stanley Donen on the other. It was feminists versus chauvinists, as many of the terrified cast members reported to the press at the time. The men, who were largely of an older generation, basically wanted to stage the movie. The feminists wanted to recreate the story for the stage and give it more of a social conscience. The show that they created, while agreeing on nothing, was a hodgepodge, and everyone spoke ill of everybody else in the papers.
Many critics said the show lacked inventiveness or a distinct style, which was no wonder given the creative tug-of-war always at play behind the scenes. Now, another major flaw was that the movie was dramatic because of how dangerous the impresario seemed. The musical made him less so, which diminished the power of the story.
Fred Ebb said about recreating Kiss of the Spider-Woman for the stage, "You have to slash a movie down to its absolute essentials and then dare to go where the original didn't." I think that's good advice. Other than the suicide, everything about The Red Shoes was deemed old-fashioned and outdated. The book was plodding and boring to most, and during previews, the show was nicknamed The Dead Shoes. Later, the show would be even more sadly nicknamed Julie's Last Jam. It was Julie Styne's last show on Broadway. And Jelly's Last Jam was out at the time. I know, it's sad. Serena Coyne's ad slogan for The Red Shoes, I love this, is "For girls everywhere, their mothers, their grandmothers, and all of the men who love them." Meaning everybody. It's on their flyer right there. So it's kind of like, who was the target audience for the show? The show was very ballet heavy, but if you love ballet, you'd probably just go to the ballet. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't know who they wanted to get. When the show closed, the American Ballet Theater actually stored the sets and costumes to try to do the musical's big ballet as part of their repertoire. It's kind of crazy.
The day after the show opened, the box office wrap was $20,000 for a show that cost $400,000 a week to run. After deadly reviews from the critics, The Red Shoes closed in 4 days. This meant it was ineligible for any Tony Award nominations. The producers could have tried to invite nominators to one of the 51 previews, but this would have implied that they thought they might have to close quickly after opening. However, since The Red Shoes, it has become customary for any and every show to begin inviting nominators during previews. Underneath the chaos, there was much to recommend about the show. Critic Ethan Morden acknowledged that Styne's music was his best for Broadway in 20 years.
Clearly, that is a great song, so much to recommend.